Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores.
Rolling.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic podcast number 1232. January 25, 2024. 58 degrees was the record high on this day. That was in 1944. Somebody tell Paul Douglas. It's 31 below on this day in 1904.
Hail the flashlight king.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Haidt in the newsroom, and of course, the rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
I only mentioned Paul Douglas, who is hail fellow, well met. I know Paul. And he's not alone in the local meteorologists. They can't express their astonishment enough that we're having essentially a non-winter. And I just wonder what they think when they look back and they see that this has happened routinely throughout history.
You know who was really hostile about it is that Sven character. The guy that
Sungarden.
He likes taking his shirt off in public. That guy, I mean, this is a serious point of contention with him.
Mm-hmm. It developed during the show yesterday that Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarity is charging the state trooper with 3 counts in the case involving the death of Ricky Cobb II following a traffic stop last summer in Minneapolis. And she's charging Trooper Londegren, Ryan Londegren, I have a number of articles that I've read about it, including from David Zimmer at the Center of the American Experiment. The charging decision came after a 7-month investigation conducted by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Lawyers from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and a private law enforcement use of force expert hired by Moriarity to review the case. The complaint charges Londegren with count 1, second-degree murder without intent while committing a felony, described as second-degree assault by firearm. Count 2, first-degree assault, and count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence creating unreasonable risk. A second-degree murder conviction calls for a presumptive prison sentence of 128 to 180 months. The complaint was issued as a summons rather than a warrant or a complaint and order of detention, meaning authorities won't go through the unnecessary actions of arresting and booking Trooper Londegren in jail prior to his initial court appearance. The Hennepin County office did not request bail be applied, but did request Londegren be ordered to surrender his passport and firearms and abide by conditions set by the court. These developments, Zimmer writes, suggest strongly that the Hennepin County Attorney's Office appropriately recognizes Trooper Londegren does not represent a public safety threat, a recognition unfortunately not given to other officers charged for on-duty use of force incidents in recent years, including the gal in Brooklyn Center who was in jail awaiting her court appearance. And then we go through the story again, and I've read it numerous times. You want to hear it again?
Go.
On Monday, July 31, 2023, at 1:50 a.m., a Minnesota State Trooper observed Ricky Cobb driving on I-94 north of downtown Minneapolis with his headlights out. Well, there's correction number 1 for me. I thought it was taillights. He was driving with his headlights out. That's reasonably dangerous at night, isn't it?
Yes, very.
The trooper stopped Cobb near Dowling Avenue North and identified Cobb. The scene was a busy urban freeway with traffic passing by at highway speeds. The trooper had to approach and deal with Cobb while standing partially in a lane of traffic. Yes.
The problem is, and I discovered this morning, when you go to different sources, you get different things. The Star Tribune reports taillights.
Yeah.
So one or the other.
Yeah, let's go with that. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
While running standard checks on Cobb, the trooper learned that Cobb was wanted by Ramsey County on a probable cause pickup request. By the way, they're required to pick them up once they learn this.
Okay.
It's not a matter of their discretion. They have to pick him up.
Is that a small ray of hope?
Well, we'll find out. While running standard checks on Cobb, the trooper learned that Cobb was wanted by Ramsey County on a probable cause pickup request related to a violation of a domestic no contact order earlier that weekend. The information required the trooper to arrest Cobb. I think that's germane to this.
Okay.
A probable cause pickup is used frequently during the investigative phase of a case prior to a formal arrest warrant being issued by a judge. Police have the same authority to arrest someone on a PC pickup as they do with an arrest warrant. And anyone subject to a probable cause pickup has no right to resist arrest or demand to see a warrant. When the police tell someone that they are under arrest, the law demands that those people comply with the officers. At about 2:15, the initial trooper returned to Cobb's car and began attempting to get Cobb to cooperate and step out of the car, which Cobb refused to do. By this time, two other troopers, one of whom was Trooper Londegren, had arrived to provide backup, given the felony arrest situation and the location and time of the stop. Middle of the night on a busy freeway.
Right.
Excuse me. The trooper asked Cobb to turn the car off and surrender the keys, which Cobb refused to do. All right. The trooper again asked Cobb to exit the car, at which time the trooper would explain more to Cobb. Cobb continued to refuse, and the trooper told Cobb, "You're under arrest," at which point he's also supposed to comply.
Okay.
And did not. Given Cobb's refusal to cooperate and exit the car, Trooper Londegren opened the passenger door, and the initial trooper opened the driver door to provide a clear view of the car's interior for officer safety reasons and to provide physical access to pull Cobb out if he continued to resist.
Okay.
You with me so
By
far?
the book so far.
As the doors were open, Cobb put the car into gear, and Trooper Londegren drew his handgun to provide cover as the initial trooper physically tried to pull Cobb out of the driver door. Cobb resisted and drove forward, with both troopers partially in the car. Trooper Londegren fired 2 shots at Cobb, who then drove off, throwing both troopers onto the roadway. Cobb drove a short distance before crashing. He subsequently died from the gunshots. A handgun was found on the floorboards immediately behind Cobb. And now we turn to Mr. John Haidt in his new newsroom for additional information from an earlier release by the Department of Public Safety.
Yes, Department of Public Safety, August 3rd, 2023, said they found 2 cartridge casings, a cell phone, and a handgun. So casings also.
All right, thank you.
Meaning bullets that had been fired.
Right.
Mhm.
The gun is not visible on any of the body cam video, and it's unclear at this time if any of the troopers became aware of the gun prior to the shots fired. But what we do know is, A, there was a gun, B, it had been used, however recently, and C, if you can familiarize yourself with sitting behind the wheel of a car, it's nothing to reach behind the console and grab a gun.
Yep.
I'm not saying Cobb did that, but he could have.
Could have.
The gun offers insight into why Cobb refused to cooperate. He's a felon. He's not supposed to have a gun.
Well, and then as an officer, wouldn't you have that in the back of your head?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's called, I'm sorry, Joe, it's called officer safety warning, and one was probably issued in this case.
The gun offers insight into why Cobb refused to cooperate and attempted to flee, as he was a felon prohibited from possessing firearms and his arrest with a gun would have led to a significant charge and a likely prison sentence.
Wait.
We don't know that.
Although with Moriarity, that could not be certain. The presence of Cobb's gun also offers continued evidence of the extreme risks law enforcement officers face while doing their job. There truly is no such thing as a routine traffic stop or routine arrest, especially at 2 a.m. on a busy freeway. And then we're offered, if you go to the Center of the American Experiment piece, you can view the video camera footage, which I have seen. And then we learn that Cobb has a significant criminal history, which can never be offered as an example of why this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we here should offer that up. I think you should read that paragraph, Joe.
Domestic abuse, gross misdemeanor, domestic assault, felony, theft, petty misdemeanor, domestic abuse, no contact order, misdemeanor, domestic assault by strangulation, felony, theft, misdemeanor.
Yeah. Also connected to the 19 block Dipset gang over on the north side.
Has that ambulance chaser arrived in town yet, Crump?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Because this is going to cost Hennepin County taxpayers some money, huh?
They are holding a press conference this morning. I'll see who's there. The family is. So,
in an appellate court document regarding one of Cobb's cases, the court noted that based on recent police contacts, it was clear that Cobb continued to make poor choices by associating with criminal individuals, drugs, and firearms. Concluding takeaways. Cobb's criminal history and his possession of a firearm made it unlikely any amount of discussion or negotiation on the part of the troopers would have led to his cooperation. Let me stop right there. Our troopers or police officers, now at a point, given the vengeful nature of the Hennepin County attorney, I would say a bitter and vengeful nature. Our police and troopers are now supposed to get to the point of a traffic stop where the stopped person does not comply. Are they then to get back in their car and leave?
So that's a great question.
You know why? Because as long as this bitter, vengeful woman has control over their livelihoods, that's what I would do if I were them.
They won't, though.
Of course not.
No,
But that's,
they won't.
I wouldn't blame them if they did.
Right.
Wow.
All right. I see your point. Yeah.
Bring back Mike Freeman, huh?
No.
No, God.
No.
No.
Well, it's kind of like the one that was the last one is better than the one that's
You're
in
going
right
to have
now.
to go further back than Mike. Farther?
Cobb's
Yeah.
farther is
I knew
distance.
he wouldn't be able to help himself.
Further is in addition to. Cobb's criminal history and his possession of a firearm made it unlikely any amount of discussion or negotiation on the part of the troopers would have led to his cooperation. Those who question Trooper Londegren's actions need to recognize the extremely difficult position officers are in during such arrest situations. It's a simple fact that attempting to arrest an armed, prohibited felon on a freeway at 2 a.m. is not a safe or simple task. Those willing to do so on our behalf are deserving of our respect and the benefit of the doubt. That's one thing you don't get from Moriarity in this case is absolutely no benefit of the doubt.
Right.
In fact, to double down, she has charged him with 3 counts. We have yet to learn from Trooper Londegren on what he perceived and what that gap in information, and if that gap in information is significant. The Cobb case is yet another example of a tragic situation born out of a criminal offender refusing to comply with lawful commands. So many of the high-profile cases of deadly force could have been avoided by compliance on the part of the offender. The sooner our society begins valuing compliance, the better off
Right.
we'll all be.
Yep.
To that end, the National Police Association has been running a public awareness campaign called Comply Now, Complain Later.
Okay. I want you to stop. Now I want to read to you what Mary said yesterday.
Okay.
And this is quoting her directly. As with all Minnesota law enforcement officers, state troopers may only use deadly force when it's necessary to protect a person from a specific identified threat of great bodily harm or death that was reasonably likely to occur, she said at the news conference. That did not exist in this case. Ricky Cobb II should be alive today. There is no mention there or no acknowledgement there of compliance. Ricky Cobb II would be alive today if he complied. It's that simple. And bodily threat did exist.
To the
It
officer
existed.
leaning in on the driver's side.
It existed. Both sides. They both got dragged. It existed.
It would be interesting to see what she thought. How should this have played out? Just drop off the car, let him drive away?
Well,
what
I'd be
exactly?
glad to ask her if she'd ever come on the
Yeah.
air.
Well, look at how long that explanation was that you just read, Kenny. And this is a split decision.
Right.
At the
Exactly.
time, am I going to die? Is he going? What's going to happen here?
Split seconds. Split seconds.
You don't have time to assess.
Not
when
at
he's
all.
Hitting the gas.
There's no discussing it.
It had been the long-standing practice that in police deadly force incidents, the county attorney would present the case to a citizen grand jury who would decide whether the officer was justified in their use of force. That changed in the late 2010s when Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman decided to make charging decisions himself. Reports indicate Moriarity used an investigative grand jury to obtain sworn testimony from witnesses, but declined to use the grand jury to make the charging decision in this case. Given the political nature of these incidents, it makes more sense to keep the charging decision within the citizen grand jury and away from an elected official, which she did not do. She took it from them and said, I got this.
Right. And she also had a use of force expert
I have it right
hired.
here.
But it's important to note before you read that, she did not use him or her to make her decision. Go ahead.
The hiring of a use of force expert to review the case and provide expert testimony will be a very important aspect to evaluate in this case. We are not aware who this expert is at this point, but this expert's historical body of work will be telling in evaluating whether the Hennepin County Attorney's Office is acting impartially in this case, or whether they hired an expert who has made a career out of impugning law enforcement officers. There is a fact that should not get lost in this story. Not a single officer in the history of Minnesota has been charged with a crime related to their use of deadly force until 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, a total of 8 officers have been charged with various degrees of manslaughter and murder related to on-duty use of deadly force incidents. Given the professionalization of the law enforcement in recent decades, the increased standards in training to become an officer, and the diversification of the profession, the recent trend of officers being charged does not seem logical. Are we to believe more professionals, well-trained, and diverse officers are violating the law with more frequency? Or is there a decided slant in the lens with which prosecutors are now operating? The prosecution of Trooper Londegren will send a chill across Minnesota law enforcement. This chill will manifest in officers, deputies, troopers, and agents less willing to be proactive, and a decrease in officer morale. Given the already difficult environment that exists in police recruitment and retention, Minnesota can expect even less police presence and more emboldened criminals, all leading to more lawlessness and disorder and to a state that will be decidedly less safe.
So do you think Londegren's attorney, Chris Medell, has a shot here? He made some interesting comments yesterday via video. Do you think?
Yes, I do, and I'll explain why in a